So today we're going to look at two-step inequalities. And two-step inequalities are similar to two-step equations. In fact, we go about solving them in a very similar way. So the same thing that we did when we solved equations, we're going to start by putting down this line. Now, an inequality simply means that instead of saying something has to be equal to 3, maybe we're saying something has to be greater than 3 or greater than or equal to 3. An example would be you go to Disneyland and it says you have to be this tall to ride this ride and the height is 3 feet. So you have to be 3 feet. It doesn't say you have to be only 3 feet. It's you have to be at least this tall. So if you're 4 feet, you can still ride the ride. If you're 6.5 feet, you can still ride the ride. But you can't ride it if you're only 2.5 feet. So the idea of an inequality is we're saying something has to be either more than something else or less than something else, or it might be greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. All right, so in this case, this is a less than. We can see the less than sign. So they're telling us that 3x plus 4 has to be less than 10. Our first step is going to be exactly like it would be if we were doing an equation. We know that this is the side we're solving, the 3x plus 4 side. So the first thing we would do is we would subtract a 4 to cancel that out. And now what we have left is we have 3x and then 10 minus 4 is 6. So 3x is less than 6. Next step, same thing again. We're dividing by 3. That's the coefficient. We have 3 x's. We want to know what 1x is. So we have our big one. 1 times x is x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. We're saying x has to be less than 2. And to check our work, we would go through and we'd say, all right, let's take a number less than 2. Let's take the number 1. What if 3 were 1? Well, 3 times 1 plus 4, would that be less than 10? You bet 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. And 7 is definitely less than 10. Now, if you want to do an extra check, if you want to be extra sure, then you pick a number that doesn't work. So this says x is less than 2. Let's pick a number bigger than 2. Let's try x equal to 3. So we would do this again, and we'd ask ourselves, what's 3 times 3? Well, that's 9. Is 9 plus 4 less than 10? No, it is not. No, it is not. So we know that the correct values would be things less than 2. Okay, let me get rid of this. And we will do another. Just erase all of that. All right, here's our next problem. We're going to start off the very same way. We're going to start off by putting that line down. That line's our reminder. Whatever we do on one side, have to do on the other. In this case, we're solving the side that has 5x plus 1. And so our first step is to get rid of the 1. So we're going to subtract by 1 on both sides. Those cancel out. That's our check along the way. We can see that that cancels. So now we have 5x greater than or equal to 30. 31, take away the 1. 5 is our coefficient. It's how many x's we have. So we're going to divide by the 5 because that gives us the big one, which gets us down to just 1x is greater than or equal to 30 divided by 5, which is 6. And to check our work, we go through and we say, all right, let's take the 5 times a number greater than 6. Let's take 7. 5 times 7 plus 1, is that greater than or equal to 31? And yes, it is. 35 plus 1 greater than or equal to 31. We did that right. Didn't give myself credit over here. Got to give myself credit. Did that right. Let's scroll down and let's look at problem 4, because problem 4 is a little bit different. We have a negative coefficient here on problem 4. So we're going to solve that just slightly differently. We are still going to start out with our line. we're still going to start out by getting rid of the number that doesn't sit with the variable. So we're going to get rid of the 6 first. So let's do that. Since this was plus 6, we're going to subtract 6. There we go. And that leaves us with negative 4x greater than 20. 26, take away the 6. Our next step is still divide by this coefficient, so we can get a big 1. Here's the big 1 right there. So we divide that, which gives us 1 times x is x. 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5. Here's what happens, though. If you're dividing by a negative, this is going to change directions. Anytime you divide or multiply by a negative, it changes directions. And I'll prove that to you with my check. So I said x has to be less than negative 5. So a number less than negative 5 would be negative 6. So I'm going to do my check with negative 6. Negative 4 times negative 6 plus 6, is that greater than 26? Well, negative 4 times negative 6. 4 times 6 is 24. Negative times negative is a positive. Plus 6, 24 plus 6 is 30, and 30 is definitely bigger than 26. Let's say that I had not reversed the sign. Let's say I kept the sign the way it was, and I said x is greater than negative 5. So let me pick a number bigger than negative 5. For example, negative 4. So I'd have negative 4 from my original problem times negative 4. That's my number that's greater than negative 5. Plus 6. Negative 4 times negative 4 would be positive 16 plus 6. That would be 22. Is 22 bigger or greater than 26? No, it is not. And this would prove that this was wrong. So anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number, the sign of the inequality has to change direction, has to reverse. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is you're going to go ahead, you're going to start working these problems. We're doing this all in class, so if you're watching this video as a review, you did this in class probably. You're going to go ahead, you're going to start working these. I'm going to put some more up, some more of the answers up. And so once you've worked some in class, you're going to see those answers. If you're reviewing, I would suggest do some of the other problems on the page and then come back, turn on the video, and look for answers. All right, I'm going to do my work here on 5, and I'll describe the steps as we go again. So the same idea. I'm going to put this down like so, and I'm going to add a 6 to cancel out that 6, add a 6 over here. So cancel out, 2y left, greater than 8 plus 6, 14. Divide by the coefficient, the 2. There's my big 1. Check myself along the way. 1 times y greater than 14 divided by 2, 7. And I need to do a check, and I think this time I'll check with a number greater than 7. I'll pick 8. 2 times 8, take away 6. Is that still greater than 8? Well, 2 times 8 is 16. 16 take away 6 is 10. 10 is greater than, 10 is greater than 8. And that looks like I know what I'm doing. Let's go back up and pick up number 3. So problem 3, same idea. Put my line down, and the first step is going to be to add 3 to both sides. When I do that, those cancel out. 6y left here, less than or equal to 27 plus 3 is 30. Divide by 6 on both sides. There's my big 1. Tells me I'm on the right track. So 1 times y is y, less than or equal to 30 divided by 6 is 5. Here comes the check. We need a number that is less than or equal to 5. Let's pick 4. I always like to pick the next number down or the next number up. So 6 times 4 minus 3, is that less than 27? 6 times 4 is 24 minus 3, that's 21. And yes, that is less than or equal to 27. All right, one more for you. We have a negative right there. Keep track of that. That should tell you as soon as you see that negative coefficient, that should remind you at the end you're going to have to reverse the direction of the sign. But until that time, we do it just like we've done the others. So negative 3 minus 7, this is the side we're solving. We have to undo that first. Do the opposite or the inverse, whatever term you want to use. So we have negative 3y left over, negative 3y left over, less than 5 plus 7 is 12. We're going to divide by the negative 3. That is the coefficient. There it is right there. 1 times y is y, less than 12 divided by negative 3. Well, positive divided by negative, signs are different. Answer is negative. 12 divided by 3 is 4. We need a number less than negative 4. Negative 3 is a good one. Negative 3. All right, so we have 1, negative 3 divided by negative 3, that's 1 is y. We have 12 divided by negative 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Positive divided by negative, signs are different. And since we divided by a negative, we are reversing the direction of the sign. Let's check, and we're going to check both ways to make sure that that is actually going to work. So we need a number greater than negative 4. So I am going to select the number greater than negative 4. I'll pick negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 minus 7, is that all less than 5? Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. 9 minus 7 is 2. 2 is less than 5. Let's say you were working with somebody who forgot to reverse the sign, who left it as 4 less than, or excuse me, not 4, but y less than negative 4. Now let's see what would happen. If we need y less than, gosh, I'm having trouble writing here, aren't I? Y less than negative 4. Well, a number less than negative 4 is negative 5. So we would have negative 3 times negative 5 minus 7. Is that less than 5? Well, negative 3 times negative 5 would be positive 15. 15 take away 7 is 8. Is 8 less than 5? You know it's not. Not true. Not true. Have to reverse the signs. Okay, so I'm going to put the rest of the answers up. I'm just going to show you the work on the rest of the steps, and you can go through and check yours. Okay, here are the rest of the answers, and you'll notice I went through and I highlighted all of the negative coefficient signs. So in each case where I highlighted that, you would need to reverse the sign once you get to the end. So in this problem, in 7, it started out as a greater than or equal to. It ends up as a less than or equal to. Number 8, coefficient's not negative, we don't do anything. Number 9, it's a negative 4 coefficient, so what started out as a greater than ends up as a less than. Number 10, negative coefficient, what started as a less than ends up as a greater than. Number 11, negative coefficient. What started as a less than or equal to ends up as a greater than or equal to. Number 12, negative coefficient. What started as a greater than sign ends up as a less than sign. And one more thing, on 9 and 12, the number that we were not solving, the answer part, was on the left. So if you get something like 9 where it's 2 is less than x, and you find that at all confusing, you can flip everything around. If 2 is less than x, then x is greater than 2. A lot of times it's easier for us if we see it in this form, and it's going to be easier for us when we graph it, and that's what comes up next. Okay, questions that you have, bring to class. Most of you had the chance to do a lot of this in class on Thursday. If you didn't, if you were absent, make sure you get it done because this is something you need to know.